everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're talking about the 4th episode of Season 3 of Netflix's She-Ra. This episode was really frustrating because the characters keep insisting on digging deeper and deeper holes with their terrible decisions. It's so hard to root for these main characters, because they really should have known better by now, but there hasn't been adequate character growth. In fact, it feels like a lot of these characters have been regressing. It's also confusing because there were rules that were established, but this episode seems to ignore them, along with some plot holes that really shouldn't have slipped through the cracks. This episode begins with the Princess Alliance in the war room, coming up with plans to take on the Horde. I appreciate that they're planning, except for Mista, who's sitting with her feet up. Glimmer teleports in with Bow and Huntara, much to everyone's surprise, including ours. How has she not run out of magic by now? Not only did they go through the Crimson Waste, but they also had to get back to Bright Moon. Did she teleport all the way back from there? This is one of the inconsistencies we were talking about. It seems that Glimmer's magic limitations only exist when the plot demands it. Even though we didn't miss Swiftwind, he probably should have gone to the Crimson Waste with them. That way they could have had transportation, and it could have explained how they got back, without just ignoring Glimmer's limitations. But Remista asks about Huntara, and Glimmer quickly introduces her, only for the narrative to forget that she exists beyond this point. We don't see her for the rest of the season. They might as well have left her in the Crimson Waste since she doesn't have anything else to do. It's kind of a shame. In the original show, Huntara was an alien from a proud noble warrior race. She traveled all the way to Etheria because she heard the planet had been enslaved, and she wanted to help. Too bad Hordak tricked her into thinking She-Ra was the evil dictator, but they figured it out. The new Huntara is the exact opposite of her original counterpart. She deserted the Horde but chose to hide out in the Waste because she was running scared, and she needed the best friend squad to inspire her, only for the narrative to forget she exists. But she did get better treatment than Tongue Lasher. After introducing Huntara, Glimmer starts demanding they go to the Fright Zone without explaining herself or what they've been up to. Angella tells her that they're already planning their attack on the Horde, but Bow and Glimmer tell them that Catra kidnapped Adora, so they have to drop everything and go to the Fright Zone to get her back. Naturally, Angella is confused and distraught over the news that Adora's been captured, but Glimmer doesn't bother to explain anything and just argues with her mom. Glimmer is supposed to be the leader of this rebellion, and as a leader she really needs strong communication skills, but instead she runs around behind the rebellion's back and just demands things from everybody without making her point clear. She owes everyone an explanation and also an apology, but instead she's rude and entitled. This whole thing could have been avoided if the three of them had been reasonable instead of just rushing off into the Crimson Waste without telling anybody. Obviously, Angella demands an explanation, so she drags Glimmer out into the hallway so they can talk, but of course Glimmer has to be a total brat. What else is new? Glimmer and Angella argue in the hallway, but Glimmer doesn't actually make any sound arguments, even though the show wants us to side with Glimmer over Angella. Glimmer wants to rush off into enemy territory with no plan, and Angella calls her out on it. Glimmer claims that it's better to just rush off and do whatever she wants because before she started doing that, the rebellion hadn't made a move in years, but Angella says that rushing off will put them at risk of losing more people, which is something they have to consider. They've already lost Entrapta and Adora. Angella argues that as the leader of the rebellion, Glimmer can't just run off and do whatever she wants, but Glimmer insists that doesn't matter because Angella is always going to be there breathing down her neck. Angella is Glimmer's queen, mother, and commanding officer. That's 3 levels of authority. How can Glimmer really talk back to her? But the entire time Angella is framed in shadow. The staging implies that Angella is wrong, but everything she's saying is actually sound. Yet Glimmer keeps insisting that she's right and her way is what's best for the rebellion. But Glimmer doesn't deserve any credit for the rebellion's victories. In fact, her actions have largely been a detriment to the rebellion, and others have had to come bail her out. And yet she's still the leader for some reason. Angella keeps trying to reason with her, saying that she's tried to trust Glimmer but she keeps going behind her back. But Glimmer says that Angella is the one who can't be trusted, because she never told her that Shadow Weaver was her dad's old teacher. The show treats it like this is some kind of serious betrayal, but is it actually a big deal? Did Angella even know Micah at that time? Plus, Shadow Weaver could have said something back when she kidnapped and tortured Glimmer in episode 9. But Angella is the bad guy here? How does that make sense? Besides, Glimmer has a lot of nerve talking about trust to Angella when she's constantly betraying her over and over again. Glimmer even says that they should just get Shadow Weaver to lead them into the Horde, so she can forgive Shadow Weaver for torturing her, but she can't forgive her mother for not telling her that Shadow Weaver was her dad's old teacher, despite despite the fact that that information isn't really relevant or honestly any of Glimmer's business. I think this information could have been incorporated into Glimmer's arc in an interesting way if it had been written properly, like if Shadow Weaver had used it against Glimmer while she was torturing her back in episode 9. But she didn't. She doesn't bring it up at all. There's more important things to focus on, yet Glimmer is preoccupied with this information. Eventually Angella has to play the Queen card, but it doesn't matter anyway because Glimmer's just gonna keep going behind her back and betraying her again. Character development? What's that? Back in the Fright Zone, Hordak is testing out his new suit. It's working well despite a few hiccups. Hordak starts to get upset, but Entrapta tells him there's no reason to get into a tizzy just because something doesn't work right away, which is a good life lesson. Except Hordak claims he's never been in a tizzy, which is absolutely ridiculous. But Entrapta changes the subject to the portal machine. She says if they try to open a portal now, it won't be stable enough to send anyone through. But Hordak says they only need to send a signal through, and then Horde Prime will be able to open a portal from his side. Entrapta is upset by this because it means Hordak will have to leave. So she convinces him that there's no rush to open a portal, only to be interrupted by Catra, who walks in with Adora and the Sword of Protection. Catra remarks that they should be surprised to see her, since she was supposed to die out there, but Entrapta gets distracted by Catra's whip. Catra tells them that the sword is the key to the planet, including the portal technology they need. Entrapta and Hordak are clearly sad by this, but Catra literally snaps her fingers and asks what they're waiting for, so they just turn around and get to work. Since when does Hordak take orders from Catra? The last time the two saw each other, he was sentencing her to death. You'd think he would be yelling at her right now, even though she doesn't actually deserve it. It would just be in character for him. Plus, they don't even want to open the portal right now. But they just get to work. I guess Catra's leading the Horde now. That is what she wanted. Hordak questions if Adora needs to be there. Entrapta asks Adora if they need She-Ra and the sword to open the portal, but Adora says that she doesn't know and she wouldn't tell them even if she did. But Entrapta says that's okay since she likes to figure stuff out for herself anyway. Adora finally gets the chance to tell off Hordak for kidnapping her and lying to her entire life, but Hordak blows her off saying that he couldn't have lied to her since he never knew who she was to begin with. Why doesn't Adora question how he was able to open a portal back then, when she was specifically told that they couldn't open portals ever since Mara threw them into a pocket dimension? But Hordak was able to open a portal, and without Entrapta's help, but why can't he do it again? It would just be really nice if they addressed this plot hole. Adora says that she's going to stop him, and Hordak tries to yell at her, but his suit short circuits. Entrapta tries comforting him, but he smacks her hair away and yells at her instead, demanding she get back to work, before storming off. Surprising that he would yell at Entrapta and not Catra, but suddenly the Sword of Protection reacts to the machine, and flies into place on its own. Entrapta is shocked and happy by this turn of events, but it's strange that the bad guys worked so hard on this machine only for it to put itself together in the end. It feels a bit undeserved. Unfortunately, it cuts back to Glimmer right when it's getting good. Glimmer wants Shadow Weaver's help to get Adora back. She tells Bo she knows it's a bad idea, but she doesn't think they have another choice. You know, her acknowledging this is a bad idea almost makes it worse. Maybe they could work with the Princess Alliance and actually come up with a plan? But Glimmer grabs Bo before he can protest and teleports the two of them into Shadow Weaver's spare bedroom. It turns out they gave her a comfy chair and a book to read. I mean, I get that the rebellion doesn't want to be like the bad guys, but it's Shadow Weaver. She's kind of horrible. Shadow Weaver immediately starts manipulating Glimmer, telling her that she's smart and she knows that this is her only option, which shows that she hasn't changed at all. Glimmer tells her that the Horde has Adora and the sword, and they're going to open a portal. Shadow Weaver says the only way to get there in time is if Glimmer lets her out. She says she can help Glimmer teleport right into the heart of the Fright Zone. Glimmer says she doesn't have enough magic for something like that, but she did fine in the Crimson Waste. She never ran out of magic. She even had enough magic to teleport herself and two other people into the war room. But now that the story needs Shadow Weaver to manipulate her, she doesn't have enough magic. But Shadow Weaver says she can enhance her power by tapping into her connection with her runestone, which sounds like an amazing idea. Just let Shadow Weaver mess with a runestone. Shadow Weaver says with their powers combined, they can teleport into the heart of the Fright Zone, free Adora, and disable the machine. The lighting in this scene makes it look like Glimmer is about to make a deal with the devil, and she asks Shadow Weaver if she can really make her that powerful, as if that's what's important right now. I thought she was doing this to get Adora back and save the planet. This line makes it sound like she wants the power. Shadow Weaver tells Glimmer that she's not just a princess, princess, she's also the daughter of a powerful sorcerer, and that she has more magical abilities than she realizes. I can probably agree with that, but why did Shadow Weaver bring it up? Casta is also a sorceress. She could teach her magic, but Shadow Weaver offers to show her. But let's be real, she wants the power, which even Bo points out. But Shadow Weaver says they don't have much time, and also defends herself by saying she wants revenge on the Horde. You can want both, but Glimmer dramatically releases Shadow Weaver and literally steps into the shadows. Even Bo disapproves. For once we're on the same page. It's kind of annoying that every time Bo is right, other characters just push him around, and he lets them. Like when he was the only person who cared about sword safety, and now here, he really has to start standing up for himself. It then cuts back to the Fright Zone. The new characters from the Crimson Waste are messing around and giving Scorpia a hard time. Catra interrupts them, much to Scorpia's relief, but Catra just brags about how they're going to win the war now because of her. She kind of condescendingly thanks Scorpia, saying that she wouldn't have been able to do it without her, and Scorpia looks on concerned. I still don't understand what Scorpia sees in Catra. Meanwhile, Entrapta is waiting for Hordak to come back so they can continue experimenting with the machine, but Adora tries to reach out to Entrapta, explaining that they never meant to leave her behind. I appreciate that Adora is actually trying to talk to her. Bo and Glimmer just gave up on her when they found out she switched sides. But Entrapta insists that she did abandon her because Catra said so, and Catra is her real friend. Adora tells her that she used to be friends with Catra too, but Catra makes really bad decisions, which is an understatement, and this is one of them. And she says that they aren't going to be able to open a portal. Then Entrapta gets really dramatic and flings her hair at Adora, making it look like she's going to use it as a weapon against her, but instead she just slides over to Adora without hurting her at all. What was the point of this being so dramatic? Entrapta just says that she can't open the portal now that she has the sword, and asks Adora if she was paying attention. Adora tries to explain that Mara made it impossible to open portals, ignoring the fact that Hordak brought Adora to Etheria through a portal, but whatever. But Entrapta admits that she's noticed anomalies in her data. She says that if these anomalies are true, they could be catastrophic for the planet. Why is she only now acknowledging this? That seems really reckless, but then again, that's in character for Entrapta. But she does decide to run more tests on the matter, which is good, so she leaves Adora alone tied up in the lab. Back in Bright Moon, Glimmer and Bo have taken Shadow Weaver up to the Runestone. Honestly, I don't even know what to say at this point. Mermista, Frosta, and Perfuma catch them and want to know what's going on. Glimmer actually draws her weapon against them, saying that this is the only way to save Adora. Glimmer, you're their commander. They're your teammates. This is how you're gonna treat them? And how do you know this is the only way? You never explored any other options. You're just putting all your faith in Shadow Weaver, who more than likely has ulterior motives. But it turns out they don't want to stop Glimmer, they want to go with. Shadow Weaver tries to protest, saying a large group will put them at a disadvantage, but they put their foot down. Meanwhile, the Queen goes to Glimmer's room to talk to her, only to find that she's not there. So now everyone's going behind the Queen's back, except Natasa and Spinnerella, I guess, who actually were in the war room, but they're being excluded again. I still don't know why they were introduced at all. They never get to do anything. The Queen goes looking for them and realizes that Shadow Weaver isn't in the spare bedroom anymore, so she rushes off to try to find them. At the Runestone, Shadow Weaver holds her hand out to Glimmer. She takes it and completes the spell just as Angella was about to reach them, so she witnesses this betrayal firsthand. At least she knows what happened. So they make it inside the Fright Zone, but they miss Hordak's lab, so they have to travel on foot the rest of the way. But they're spotted by the lizard lady from the Crimson Waste. Perfuma stays behind to fight her while the rest go on, but the group encounters Lonnie and Rogelio. Lonnie sounds the alarm before pulling her weapon, so Mermista and Frosta team up to take out Lonnie, Rogelio, and the rest of the Horde that are coming, leaving Glimmer, Bo, and Shadow Weaver to go on without them, only for them to run into Catra. She's obviously not happy to see Shadow Weaver, and she mocks her because she's holding hands with the princess. Shadow Weaver says that Catra can either join them or step aside, but Catra just pulls out her whip. Bo shoots her whip with one of his arrows, but Catra whips it back at him, and he gets trapped in his own arrow, which was actually pretty clever. When Glimmer holds Shadow Weaver's hand, it's shown that she's invisible pain, as Shadow Weaver leeches Glimmer's power, but apparently none of this is a red flag to Glimmer. The two teleport wildly around Catra, but if they don't actually attack her, this fight isn't gonna go anywhere. Plus, why don't they just teleport past her and go straight to the lab? Do they actually need to confront Catra? Catra's eventually able to anticipate where they're going to teleport, and she manages to snag Glimmer's arm, but Shadow Weaver grabs a hold of the whip and shocks Catra, sending her to her knees. Shadow Weaver offers to help Catra, Catra, giving her a way out of the Horde so they can both get revenge. And although Catra has no reason to trust Shadow Weaver, I really don't like how they handled this scene. Instead of Catra calling her out and saying that it's too little too late or something along those lines, she says it's not fair that Shadow Weaver gets to be the good guy, especially after she made her this way. First of all, it's funny that they would say that Shadow Weaver's on the side of good when she's literally manipulating and abusing Glimmer as they speak. Catra and Shadow Weaver both want the same thing, revenge. But they're almost framing it like Shadow Weaver is a good guy now, when she's clearly not. Shadow Weaver talks like a villain, acts like a villain, and is still abusing the people around her. Are we actually supposed to believe she's a good guy? She just went to Bright Moon because she knew that they would be the best way for her to get revenge. But she's not actually on their side. Shadow Weaver never even apologizes to Catra for the pain and suffering she caused her. Even when Catra starts crying over the pain she's had to endure, she asks Shadow Weaver if she even cares about what she put her through. But instead, Shadow Weaver starts torturing Catra after Catra refuses to stand aside. And Glimmer just lets her do this, even though it's taking a toll on her too. She even falls to her knees from being drained. But it's Bo who cuts in and tells her to stop. And yet Glimmer chose Shadow Weaver over her own mother. And she probably still thinks she made the right decision. Catra's still hurt, so she tries to keep fighting, but new Kyle rushes in and grabs her, saying that they're too strong so there's no point. I'm surprised it was new Kyle instead of Scorpia. It turns out Scorpia is assisting Entrapta. She tells her that Catra is busy hanging out with her new friends, which makes it sound like she doesn't understand Catra at all. But Entrapta isn't listening to her because she's running tests. Each test points to disaster. She's getting frustrated and Scorpia thinks she wants her to leave, but Entrapta corrects her and shows her the results of her tests. Even Scorpia is concerned with the results. I guess they were just too caught up in trying to open a portal to actually look at these results before. Entrapta says if they try to open a portal, it'll unhinge time and space and erase everyone from existence. She says she never thought she'd say this, but they can't go through with it. I can appreciate that Entrapta does understand the consequences, but why didn't that happen when Hordak opened a portal years ago? Catra comes in and Scorpia is really happy to see her, only for Catra to literally push her aside. I hate to say I told you so, Scorpia. Catra demands to know why Entrapta isn't working on the portal. Entrapta tries to warn Catra, saying Adora was right about opening portals, but this just sets her off. It's been 3 seasons and people still don't understand Catra. Catra's hair gets messed up, which is an indication that she's going crazy, and she starts saying about how Adora gets everything she wants. But not this time. There's no point in arguing with her. She's not gonna listen to reason. Entrapta still refuses, so Catra knocks her out with one of those stun batons, and demand that new Kyle put her on the transport to Beast Island. Scorpia tries to protest, but Catra threatens her, asking if she wants to be next, so Scorpia stands down. I think now should be the time for Scorpia to stand up to Catra. She just sentenced Entrapta to death. Catra's made bad decisions. Part of it was probably from her abuse growing up, part of it is from her own problems too. But this is one of those things that I don't know if she can come back from. She's going full supervillain now. Glimmer, Bo, and Shadow Weaver are making their way to Hordak's lab. Didn't Shadow Weaver say she could teleport them to the heart of the Fright Zone? Why doesn't she just do that now? Why do they have to run the entire way? I guess this way there's more tension? Imp is attacking them, but Bo manages to catch him with one of his trick arrows. They get cornered by some bots, so Glimmer purposely takes Shadow Weaver's hand even though Bo tells her not to, but she insists that there's no other way. So they figured out that what they were doing is wrong, but she's still doing it anyway. At least she's starting to come to her senses. Meanwhile, the portal is starting up. Catra rushes in, warning Hordak that the princesses are there. Hordak asks where Entrapta is since he needs her, but Catra claims that Entrapta is the one who let the princesses in. Hordak is torn up about this. He argues that she wouldn't do something like that, but Catra just laughs at him, claiming she was never on their side to begin with. I guess Entrapta is a princess, but at the same time, why is Hordak listening to her? He tried to kill Catra 3 times. It really never crossed his mind that she might not be the most trustworthy person for him, but Catra claims that princesses are the ones that can't be trusted, looking back at Adora, claiming that they'll only use you to get what they want. I can't believe Adora spent this entire episode tied to a pole. I'm also not sure what Catra's talking about here. When did Adora use her to get what she wanted? But Catra encourages Hordak to open the portal, even though she knows it's a terrible idea that will doom them all, but she seems too unhinged to care. Shadow Weaver, Glimmer, and Bo finally make it to the lab, and they confront Hordak and Catra. The fight causes a lot of collateral damage around the lab, and debris falls around the Sword of Protection, cutting everybody off except for Catra and Adora. Not that Adora can do anything, but still. Catra decides to activate the machine just to spite Adora, and everybody looks concerned, including Hordak. The machine glows, but the episode ends here, leaving it on a cliffhanger. Well, this episode was disappointing. It's unfortunate to see Glimmer regress so much in her characterization. There were moments in the show where it seemed like she and her mother were coming to an understanding, but now all of that is thrown out the window, and I don't understand how they could expect us to side with Glimmer over Angella when she's just not being reasonable. And it's even more shocking that the show seems to be sweeping all of Shadow Weaver's past crimes under the rug, expecting us to just accept her as a good guy. I love a good villain redeemed story, just like at Avatar: The Last Airbender with Prince Zuko, but the show hasn't taken necessary steps to redeem Shadow Weaver. That was made obvious by her interaction with Catra and the way she was treating Glimmer throughout the episode. Sure, she told the heroes about Hordak's plan, but she's clearly driven by revenge, not justice. She could have at least apologized to Glimmer for her actions against her. Then again, Glimmer doesn't seem to care about the torture anymore anyway, or that Shadow Weaver abused Adora and Catra their entire lives. But apparently Angella is the bad guy in all of this, just because she actually wanted to think this through instead of rushing in with no plan. It's kind of worrying seeing this show put Shadow Weaver above Queen Angella, especially considering the fact that there are articles upon articles talking about how great this show is for kids. But this could easily be seen as teaching kids to not trust their parents and go behind their backs if you don't like what they're saying to you, since that's literally what Glimmer does all the time. Her mom says no, that's fine, she'll just do it anyway, even rushing off with a known abuser. And Bo's not any better, he did the same thing to his parents. And then there's Catra. There's actually a lot of interesting things going on with Catra, but they need to make things more clear. Are we still supposed to sympathize with her? Obviously this is the biggest mistake she's ever made, even after all the mistakes she made throughout the show, but this might be too much to come back from. It seemed like it would have made more sense to redeem Catra instead of her abuser, but they seem to be forcing Catra into being an unhinged villain, even though she knows better. I'm not even sure if Shadow Weaver was actually redeemed, but Catra did call her a good guy. Abuse is a very serious issue, and I'm just not sure the writers are going about it in the proper way. On the one hand, this episode had a lot of plot progression, which we like to see, but on the other hand, it's frustrating that the show ignores all of its plot holes and also the toxic behavior from its characters. But that's our review. What do you guys think? Has Catra gone too far? Can we trust Shadow Weaver? If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to this channel to see more content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.